Happy Valentine's Day. Let's reveal the players we love. Up next on Fantasy Baseball Today Express. Welcome into FBT Express on Friday, February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day. I am Frank Sample, joined by Chris Towers. Chris, let's start off with a hitter you love this season.
Well, let's start off by telling everyone, go listen to the full episode of Fantasy Baseball Today so you can get Scott's whole performance about his love for Isaac Paredes and
Bo Bichette
and a bunch of other guys. It's Scott at his absolute best. So go check that out. I love Jordan Westburg, and I feel like I kind of stole him from you guys, and there's a little bit of a lover's quarrel or a love quadrangle here because we all love Jordan Westburg. We all have him ranked ahead of his ADP, which is pretty high to begin with. And the reasons we love him are, one, he's a former top prospect who had a really, really good 2024 season, a 2024 season that doesn't look quite as good as you would as it actually was because he suffered a hand injury towards the end of the season that cut it short. But even there, 18 home runs, 6 stolen bases in 107 games. If all you do is project what he did out last year to a full season, you're talking about 25 homers and 10 stolen bases. That's without accounting for the fact that Baltimore moved the left field fence back in after moving it 30 feet a few years ago, because apparently they didn't love Ryan Mountcastle in particular, because it's kind of ruined his career, but they're moving the fences back in. It should be a better place, a more neutral environment for right-handed power. Jordan Westburg hits the ball really hard. He's got pretty bad plate discipline, but he's very athletic as well. You look at the whole package, and everything kind of looks like just a slightly worse version of Gunnar Henderson. Now, Gunnar Henderson's a first rounder in drafts this year for good reason, and I don't think Jordan Westburg has that kind of upside. But third round, fourth round upside, I think that's absolutely within the realm of possibility for Jordan Westburg. The thing that I'm going to keep an eye on is we saw Gunnar Henderson put up pretty mediocre stolen base totals in 2023, despite very good athleticism, and he took a big step forward as a base runner in 2024. I wonder if we see the same from Jordan Westburg, who is a 91st percentile sprint speed base runner. There is, in a best case scenario, if he really wants to be, 15 to 20 steal potential here. We could be talking about a 30-20 guy in 2025.
Yep, we're in all agreement here. A lover's quarrel, as you pointed out. Jordan Westburg's ADP, 92.3. He has second base, third base eligibility, hits the ball hard. He's fast. They're pulling those walls in. Everything is set up here for Jordan Westburg to have a monster season. We're all in. He's a player we love. What about Wilson Contreras? He is the hitter that I love this season, and the big news this offseason is that Contreras will play first base for the Cardinals, and what that does is kind of makes him a cheat code for fantasy because he's going to play every day. He still has catcher eligibility, so that gives you an advantage. There are a few other catchers that are likely going to play around every day. His brother, William Contreras, Salvador Perez, Cal Raleigh, some of these guys, Adley Rutschman, but what that allows is he doesn't have to be as amazing, right? It'll cover up by volume. And he already is pretty good as a hitter. Last year, he had 262, 15 home runs, 848 OPS. He'll chip in a handful of steals, hits the ball really hard. There are some downsides here. He's 33 years old. He's dealt with a lot of injuries in his career, a lot of lower half injuries. My hope is that moving him off catcher to first base can help him stay on the field a little bit more. And just last season, he suffered a fractured forearm on a backswing while playing catcher, right? So that won't happen while playing first base. Hopefully he stays healthy and he can reach, that upside 25 home runs, 6 to 8 steals, which would be really, really helpful at the catcher position. Let's take a quick break and we'll get to pitchers right after this.
Gives it to Jenkins for the championship. A 16 beats a 1. From sweet to elite to the Final Four.
Welcome back in FBT Express, the players we love this season. Chris, who is a pitcher you love in fantasy baseball?
There's love at first sight, and then there's times when you have to be convinced, cajoled, wooed. you might even say. I'm really disappointed I didn't think of that in time for the full podcast. Can we edit that into what I said for the full podcast? That was very good. I'm sorry. Brian Wu is the pitcher I love, and I started out last year pretty skeptical of Brian Wu. He was running like a sub-2 ERA well into the season, but every start it seemed like there was something. Forearm inflammation, a hamstring injury, cramping at one point. And it just made it hard for me to see how he made a fantasy impact, even with the really good ERA. He wasn't getting strikeouts. And then he came back from an injury, I think a hamstring injury at the beginning of August, and was just a completely different pitcher. He must have felt a lot better because he all of a sudden goes from 4 and 5 inning outings to 6 and 7 inning outings. 8 of his final 11 starts, he went at least 6 innings. He started getting a lot more strikeouts. He's got an elite 4-seam fastball that does everything you want, generates weak contact in the air, and generates whiffs. He's also got an elite sinker that has a 0-degree average launch angle, generates a ton of weak contact. He can throw both exactly where he wants to in the zone. He's got a sweeper that had a 41% whiff rate last year. I just think Brian Wu, there's risk with the health, but in terms of talent, in terms of what he does when he's on the mound, I'm not sure he's that much different than Logan Gilbert and George Kirby, who are obviously more proven, more durable, going 180 to 90 picks ahead of him in drafts. I love Brian Wu as like my number 3 or number 4 SP, especially if I've already drafted a Zach Wheeler or Corbin Burns or a Framber Valdez, one of those aces that I know is going to give me the volume. That's when I start to get really excited about drafting Brian Wu.
Yeah, I think it just comes down to your risk tolerance and what do you think about his draft cost. Right now, the ADP is 138, so it's not egregious. It's not a huge cost, but there is a lot of injury risk here. So I actually have him as a bust this season just because I'm worried about that health. But when he pitched down the stretch, he actually looked really, really good. So if we get that pitcher again, then maybe he could be a huge win at his current ADP. Some players, some people that you love, they're higher maintenance. They're going to cost you a little bit. Spencer Schwellenbach, he's going to cost you, but I think he's really good. 3.35 ERA, 104 whip last year. All of his ERA estimators were under 3.5. He was over a strikeout per inning. He had impeccable control, under 2 walks per 9. His 20.8% K-minus walk rate was 16th among starting pitchers with at least 120 innings. He had 13.5% swinging strike rate. Throws 6 different pitches, 2 of those with a whiff rate over 40%. The one thing that does scare me is it was a big innings jump, and it was a lot really fast. Like, he just came up out of nowhere, and he was just this dominant pitcher, especially down the stretch. It was like 2 7-inning clutch performances against the Mets in September. Just great stuff that we saw from Schwellenbach. The innings jump from 65 in 2023 all the way up to 168 and 2/3 last season. It's a little bit worrisome, but if you trust that, all right, he showed us he can handle a workload, and if he could do it again here in 2025, I'm all about it. Top 100 pick, ADP is 93.8, SP 26. My strategy is basically built around getting Schwellenbach as my SP3 this season. So wish the cost was a little bit lower, but I do have a lot of faith in the skill set of Spencer Schwellenbach. For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to our full-length podcast, Fantasy Baseball Today, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today Express. Enjoy your Valentine's Day, and we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.